Good morning, I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the February 23rd, 2018 edition of the Bible, Delight in the Details. Today, we are back in the Psalms, that great middle book of the Bible, written by various people, but most of them, or many of them, by, of course, the great King David. We're going to look at Psalm 138, verse 3, believed to be written by David himself. And the verse 138:3 goes like this. In the day that I cried out, you answered me. You made me bold with strength in my soul. You know, a lot of times we forget that David lived a very difficult life. We remember oftentimes that early in his life he was on the run for years, actually, because of a very jealous, mad old king, King Saul, who had forgotten that the Lord had brought him to power and had turned on the Lord, and therefore the Lord had withdrawn his spirit from him. We remember sometimes that he was on the run. He was literally living in caves, fighting for his very life, trying to walk the fine line between faithfulness to God and the king, who was at that point the anointed of God, and yet trying to protect his own very life. But we often forget that after the triumph of him becoming king, he had trouble later in his life. His life was plagued with warfare. Even as a united Israel, the Israelites still were fighting their enemies. The Philistines were a constant threat, as well as other of their neighbors, posing difficulty. And also within his own household, it proved that David was not immune from domestic squabbles, and something far worse than squabbles. He actually had rape going on in his own family, as well as one of his sons, his favorite son, apparently, before Solomon anyway, had turned on him and had was trying to usurp his crown, and actually did put him on the run, and he was once again on the run from his very life, for his very life, this time at the hands of his own beloved son, who he never could turn completely against. Even in his death, he mourned him and wished that they could have changed places. We forget all that, and I think that we need to remember it. We need to remember the difficulties that David had throughout his life, although he was beloved by God, although he was blessed, although he was a precursor in many ways to Jesus Christ himself as the great King of Israel. Yet he was not untouched by the great hardships and heartaches of life. And we find that in the Psalms, he is often asking for God, calling out to God, many times in agonizing language, and asking for strength to keep going. How many of us feel the same way? How many of us have physical, spiritual, family, financial, career issues that just make us cry out, God, help us, and help me get through one more day. Help me to stand one more day before the light shines brightly again on us. It's a passionate cry that you hear in the Psalms, and I think one of the reasons the Psalms mean so much to so many of us is that we can testify. We are right there with them, and we feel a kinship to David as he cries out. I want to call your attention to this verse, though, because here it is in the aftermath of such a cry. God has answered. And it's interesting that God does answer. When you are truly in trouble, and you know you're in trouble, and you know that there's only one hope, and that's God. God either has to help you or you are going down. When you are that sincere, that humble, and that desperate, God does respond quickly. Now, he does not always take you out of the storm. He does not always make straight your path right that moment. But what does David said happened? He said, in the day that I cried out to you, you answered. But what did God actually do? David said, you made me bold and strong in my soul. Your translation might say in your spirit. That is something that God will do immediately. He will give you peace. He will affect your emotions. He will affect your perspective. He may not change your circumstances immediately, but he will change the way in which you can deal with those circumstances. Boldness is a confidence. Boldness is the opposite of timidity. It is a confidence born of hope and born of knowledge that you have something you can trust and believe in. And of course, it's not a what here, it's a who. And then strength. Strength is not just physical strength. It's strength of character. It's strength of belief. It's setting your face like flint, as the Bible said Jesus did when he knew he had a calling, and that calling was taking him to Jerusalem and the cross. He would not be deterred. He would not be thwarted in any way. That is the kind of almost magic that God can act upon your psyche. He may not change your circumstance immediately, but he will change your psyche, because God is the God of everything, and even those things which we have so little control over, which is our emotions, our confidence, our self-esteem. These are things that God specializes in, and he can turn them on and off like a light switch. Let us be like David, and let us cry out to the one entity in the universe who can actually help us in the ways that we most need. And that is not the circumstance of our life, but our psyche, our spirit, and our boldness and confidence in dealing with those circumstances. I'm J. Lenora Bressler, hoping you'll join me on the next edition of The Bible, Delight in the Details. And in the meantime, let God make you bold and strong in your soul. Bye-bye.